between the Maelstrom Ganger and his weapon. This will prevent him from firing.
This right here is what hyped Cyberpunk up to the max. Tales of wall running, of branching narrative decisions, and elaborate hacking elements. Promises made, but not kept in the final game. The E3, rest in peace, 2018 gameplay showcase was full of these promises. But was this version of the game actually any good? Are we better off with today's version of Cyberpunk? I'd like to review them to see what the best version of Cyberpunk is. The game that was promised to us, the launch version, or the version of today. Is the Cyberpunk we got better than the Cyberpunk we were promised? To do this fairly, we need to do this in chronological order, starting with the 2018 showcase and working our way to the current version of Cyberpunk 2077. A lot can happen in 8 years, and the lifetime of this game has been a roller coaster to say the least. The initial reveal came out all the way back in 2013, 2 years after The Witcher 2 and 2 years before The Witcher 3. That's a long time to wait for a project. Was it in active production for this long? According to Jason Schreier from Bloomberg, development started to truly ramp up in around 2016. I couldn't find any source for how long this game truly took to make, but we could assume the 2018 showcase was built from roughly 2 years of full development, since The Witcher 3's Blood and Wine expansion was released the 31st of May 2016. Knowing that, we still have the problem that all we have of the 2018 showcase is, well, that it's a showcase. 48 minutes of gameplay is nothing compared to the 40+ hour story of the full game. So we need a control variable. The showcase follows 2 quests from the start of the game, saving Sandra Dorset and recovering the spider bot from Maelstrom. Therefore, our comparison will follow these constraints. We'll see how the game is played during these 2 missions and evaluate the gameplay, structure, and spirit of each. 3 versions: the showcase, the launch, and the rework. The results may surprise you.
Almost clear. Go!
Welcome to the gameplay.
The showcase starts with character building, fully customizable appearance, and this very interesting but brief look at stats. The narrator mentions the lack of a class.
Your initial attribute setup. You'll notice we didn't pick a class.
A very interesting seed to plant in the heads of the audience. Was this going to be like a true RPG, Baldur's Gate style, derived from Dungeons and Dragons? Sounds very compelling. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. He says it features a fluid class system.
Cyberpunk 2077 features a fluid class system, and you'll be able
to modify throughout the game. You notice throughout this showcase that the narrator likes to make many offhand comments about what is shown. Dangerous little white promises that imply a great deal of work behind the idea. Anyway, the player starts in the elevator with Jackie in a third-person cutscene perspective before shifting to regular gameplay. T-Bug calls them on the phone. Looks pretty good. This animated little video call is cool. The neon glow of the UI is cool too. This start is pretty compelling. For a studio that's never done guns before, the racking animation on the handgun looks solid. Great look so far, and all we've seen is a stroll down a corridor. V enters the apartment into the scavenger's den. I should add that the lighting shown here is unlike anything the mainstream had seen before up until this point in history. Keep in mind this is 2018. The flagship GPU at the time was the NVIDIA GTX 1080 Ti, with the Pro-level Titan X following suit. The first ray tracing capable line of GPUs, the 2000 series, would come out later this year. But for now, this game is truly something next-gen. Just from this one little room, we can see a ton of custom geometry and texturing. Lots of small custom animations like the way Jackie waves V into the next room. So much work has been poured into just this one sequence of the game. It really opens the mind to what is possible this game will be like, including this execution of the scav with the ice bath. How many times do you think V will have the opportunity to do that throughout the game? And what if you had an SMG or a shotgun instead of a pistol? Would it be different? The scale of the project so far is vast, and we're not 5 minutes into the showcase. The narrator says V takes a reflex booster so they can use Kerenzikov, which is used in the following room where we finally see some action. Shooting enemies, taking cover, pretty standard stuff. But this Kerenzikov thing, where time slows when you make a dash, wow, that is cool. Seeing the casings fly out of the gun in slow motion really gets the neurons firing. And you can also see the bullets fly through the air too. Nice. We can also see a pillar here chip from shooting it. Some dynamic destruction too? That is hot. We see that a little more when the last big scav boss shoots through the wall to the other side. T-Bug tells V to find a side passage and Jackie crashes through the wall into the goon. Custom scripting, custom animation, lots of work here. With the fighting done, V and Jackie find the target in the bathroom. A mostly scripted sequence of jacking into her biomonitor, removing the virus, and carrying her outside. Again, the lighting and overall presentation is unlike anything seen before. Stepping outside, we can finally see a small portion of the city. We're high up. What if the presenter just decided to jump off from here? Could they do that? What would happen? Trauma Team showing up and taking Miss Dorset away builds the world just as much as it raises questions for us. How often will we see them throughout the game? If we shoot someone on the side of the street, will they come and grab the injured? As V and Jackie leave the apartment and get back on the elevator, the camera shifts back to a third-person perspective showing that Cyberpunk will, indeed, have cinematic cutscenes to just sit back and watch. So far, this experience has been pretty interesting, promising, but that was only the first mission, and this next free roam section reveals more about what the team at CD Projekt really envisioned for the project. Jackie calls V on the holo, and again an animated video call. Seems to be different for each character, with where they are and what they're doing in the background. Here, we also see more of these diegetic menus, and a lot of annoying waypoints. Seriously, this is too many. Let's take a close look at the weapon V picks up. The Federated Arms Vindicator is a rare weapon, alluding to a tiered system. These stats are interesting. It outright displays its effective DPS, PNT, which I would assume stands for penetration, accuracy, and rate of fire. Recoil, spread, and range are also attached below. Remember, this is an RPG derived from a tabletop game. Weapons will be complex, right? These seem like normal weapon stats, but their numbers are telling. What is a spread of 4 in the context of a machine pistol? Seemed pretty accurate back in the scav hideout, but it seems faster than it is accurate. Nitpicking? Maybe. But here we see its highest number stat is PNT. It begs the question as to what these values would be if this were an assault rifle or even a shotgun. Moving on, V also grabs their iconic samurai jacket. This is arguably more interesting in terms of stats because it has a flat resistance rating across 4 damage types, in addition to having a special feature, 5% bonus XP towards street cred. Pretty strong, but it also points to an armor system that is dependent on what V wears. How many clothes will there be in this game? Will they all work like this?
But it also increases our street cred. Street cred is a form of experience the player acquires by completing side missions. It is used to unlock new vendors and content throughout Night City.
Interesting. Will this work alongside levels? Can it be raised and lowered like Fallout's Karma? Shortly after leaving the apartment, V encounters an ad that points the player to a Night Cola vending machine. In any context, this is a strange promise, because it would simply annoy players going through the game. Night City, as we've seen so far, is littered in advertising. Imagine if they all interacted with the player and influenced them to go and buy something. Talk about obnoxious.
one of Night City's many gunsmiths. We won't be checking.
Kinda rude how V just blows off Wilson like that. That's always bothered me personally.
Cyberpunk 2077 is set in Night City, a bustling metropolis located on the coast of the free state of North California. It's a dystopian city where violence and oppression are the norm. We are working hard to make Night City a fully realized, seamless open world with no loading screens. Currently, we're in Watson, a former industrial district where crime now mixes with money.
Very strong signal. You kidding me? Damn signal gonked out 3 times. 3 times, yo! It's a piece of shit. Now give me back my eddies.
Silverhand's debut album, that. Yeah, ever since he asked me.
Could be some truth to that.
Exiting the mega building, we see the full scope of Night City. Let's just take a moment to drink in this one particular shot. This city is unlike anything seen before. Dense NPC crowd, accurate lighting to a large open area with specular highlights and reflective surfaces, and the level of detail seen far away is actually very impressive. Instantly, this establishing shot captures the attention. Wow, this is certainly something else. The random conversations between NPCs are also a treat to hear passing them by.
City in any open world game to date. The city's streets are bustling with crowds of people from all facets of life, all living their lives within a full day and night cycle.
Each NPC living their lives in a full day and night cycle comment we can add to the list of ambitious, offhand promises Mr. Narrator likes to throw out.
Híjole. Fucking finally. Buckle up. Shit's happening.
What's up, Jack?
Dexter Deshawn. Huh? Sound familiar? Hombre wants to talk to you. One of Night City's top fixers, eh? Okay.
Yo, Miss V, a pleasure.
Talking to Jackie and entering Dexter Deshawn's ride is nothing special. But one small thing I'd like to point out in the beginning of this conversation is how Dex addresses V as Miss V, which alludes to the fact that Cyberpunk will change its dialogue depending on your gender. Not a huge thing, but an important detail. Such a system can be used for more than just checking the gender of the player's V. The animated cutscene that plays when V slots in the data shard is real nice. It's also cool how they seem to really be driving through the city during the conversation. But other than that, nothing we haven't seen yet. Dex gives V a quest with a side gig here, the Maelstrom heist, but also an optional route where she can meet with a Militech corpo and strike a deal with her.
It seems Dexter has given us a test of sorts to see if we're worthy. He wants us to retrieve a piece of high-tech combat gear a local gang stole from the Militech megacorp. We'll be able to approach this job from a variety of angles.
The narrator describes the mission as doable from a variety of angles, but it really only seems like 2 here. On the way to the Ripper Dock, V encounters 2 more interesting details about the showcase. A guy who approaches her with dialogue options, but also a crime scene. The crime scene is the more interesting thing here. We can assume this is a restricted area, no tampering or interfering. So what's the deal here? What happens if V trespasses? Is this a shortcut to a police combat? Or perhaps a restricted area with some good loot inside this glowing door? It's only up to speculation, but a curious addition nonetheless.
Chakra looks a little out of whack, babe.
V!
I can release.
How'd it play out with Dex?
It's all here.
All right. I'll check it out while I wait for you.
V? Dr. Vector, we'll see you now.
We're at a Ripper Dock clinic. Ripper Docks are specialist vendors who offer people the possibility to install or upgrade their cyberware.
Vicky, spry as ever, you old ripper.
Hernandez pounces on the chance, coming in with a couple of hooks. Gaining the upper hand pretty darn quickly.
Need to bump up my specs and get a grip.
Really? Now? Finally?
Vic, shit just got real. Hitting the major leagues. Got a job from Dex Deshawn.
The Dexter Deshawn? Yeah,
Finally, we see the beating heart of Cyberpunk, the cyberware. In the scripted sequence, Victor installs optics automatically, but we also see another diegetic menu intended to buy new cyberware. All part of the world, unbroken with the sequence. You can assume that since the menu exists here, that this won't be the first time buying and installing cyberware. Will this be one of many scripted sequences of V installing cyberware, or just a first-time thing? I also find it curious that Victor is the only NPC we see so far to have a level number attached to their name. What's the deal with that? Is he a level 9 Ripper Doc? Level 9 NPC? As if you'll have the chance to get into combat with your doctor. What a strange system. This goes by fast, but we can take it slow. Once the implants are installed, we see the ability for the player to zoom in on distant objects. Neat. Practical? Maybe. The scanner is curious too. It reveals that Victor deals physical damage, with those 4 resistances we saw earlier on the samurai jacket. Very low predicted threat level with 1 weak spot? Again, strange thing to put into the game. Interesting points of info that could be applied to any NPC in the game.
Now draw your weapon. You should see your ammo count in a brand new sight.
The subdermal weapon grip links to our scanner and shows us weapon information like ammo count and fire modes. It also increases the base damage on all connected weapons.
Shit, Victor. Not bad. I don't know what to say.
Say you'll take this and remember the dosage.
2 ifs now and another 2 in an hour. And like that, we're out of Vic's office and back to Jackie. The level 2 thug eyeing Jackie's car is curious as he ambushes V and Jackie in a car chase. The narrator describes it as a consequence of wiping out the scav hideout before, and now that faction has it out for V. Could this be part of the aforementioned street cred system? Or maybe it's part of a faction system in the game? How often could V expect to be jumped throughout the course of their playthrough? Now we can see the ammo counter in the bottom left due to the new cyberware. Cool. Skipping ahead, when scouting the corpo optional objective, V and Jackie provide commentary on the things now scannable. The armored car and the hustle around the agent.
Composite armor. Car's a fucking tank. Shit.
Yeah, Militech. No doubt about it. You sure you still want to meet him?
Yeah, gotta do this. But don't you move a damn muscle. Not unless I start, that is.
Going in, V is attacked by the Militech personnel, and the player is given an interesting choice of going for the gun during the interrogation. That unfortunately doesn't happen, and the conflict is settled peacefully. But this one mission is already rather complex. What happens if V grabs the gun? A shootout with Militech? Does Jackie get involved? How would this affect your street cred? It's not impossible, but it is ambitious. Instead of just providing a different way of finishing the Maelstrom mission, it creates another branching path. The dialogue system in Cyberpunk 2077 is fully gameplay driven, according to Mr.
The dialogue
Narrator.
system in Cyberpunk 2077 is fully gameplay driven.
Without needing much convincing, Miss Stout gives V 50,000 in eddies and sends her on her way. The narrator says we could hold on to the money and simply take the bot by force, but it would be difficult.
We could try and keep the money, but that would mean we'd have to take the merchandise by force, which requires a lot of firepower.
I think this is a big misstep on the part of the narrator. This isn't a tabletop RPG, it's an action game. It frankly doesn't matter how difficult the challenge is if the player is good enough at the game. Few challenges in video games are rarely truly impossible without special gear, and I doubt this mission would be any different. Which means that the player could take on the challenge, kill everyone during the mission, and complete it with an extra 50,000 bonus on top. Pretty good deal. Only if the designers intend this to be a possible solution and balance the game accordingly. The cyberware back in Vic's shop was pretty cheap compared to that payday.
Don't know you.
Want to talk to Royce?
Main room. I'm waiting.
The stroll through the Maelstrom hideout shows some traps that could be active if V barged in, or be activated if the deal goes sour. It's a classic conflict setup. No matter what, it doesn't seem like V will be able to get out of this without a shootout. Walking into the dealing room, we finally get a look at some of these colorful characters. One of them by the name of Dum Dum greets V and Jackie refuses to sit down until V steps in. Remember, the plan now is to pay for the bot with the Militech cash. So pay attention to the choices it presents as alternatives.
I plant a bullet in your skull.
Jack, sit down.
This ain't gonna end well, but... Shit.
Well, all right, fucking bravo. Come on, lighten up. Have a whiff. Better. Now we can talk.
The bot. Need to see it.
Suit yourself. Fucking tricked out, state-of-the-art this thing. Don't even got no standard port. Bells and whistles though, dynamic camo armor and motor impulses rivaling that of the human nervous system. Its actuators are actually pimped with titanium fiber, and it can go anywhere, literally. Watch this. Fully integrated link too, so when the spider starts crawling up walls, dangling from ceilings, you could lose your lunch. So, what you think?
Pay up and let's get the fuck out of here.
The bot. I'll take it.
2 questions. What the fuck's going on? And who the fuck is this?
Got 50 large on this cred ship.
And you positively reek of Militech.
Dexter Deshawn sent me.
Dexter Deshawn. Dreads. Gold plate. Fat old fuck. That him?
We'll pay for the bot and be on our way.
Again, drawing your weapon to Royce's neck begs the question, what if V had a different weapon equipped? Would it always be this machine pistol? Anyway, this V decides in the end to give the cred ship to Royce.
Move it.
Woo, not the smoothest of deals, but it worked out in the end, right? Flathead's good gear. It'll do the trick. Whatever that trick is.
Shit. Shit.
The chip had a virus on it that Militech uses to breach their system and fry their netrunner, resulting in combat. Before leaving the room, the narrator goes over the inspection system, which will apparently be useful in looking at items and completing quests. Equipping the bot chip allows the bot to follow V out of the facility.
Closer look at the splinter. You can inspect specific items to reveal details that can help in solving quests.
Before leaving though, V finds a tech shotgun, which penetrates cover and has an alternate fire where you can charge up shots. The room also shows skills to progress, as seen with disassembling the maintenance panel. Moving on to the second combat section, the narrator says they'll be showing off a few more combat tricks that'll unlock later in the game. One of these is a weapon module that allows for ricocheting bullets off surfaces with a targeting indicator. Another is a targeting system that sees enemies through walls.
Connected to our eyes. This allows players to bounce bullets off walls and hit enemies hiding behind cover. This is another targeting system that will reveal enemies behind walls. Paired with the penetrating
We also see a limb destruction system more clearly here. The V here really likes to go for the legs. Here we see the last new weapon of the game, the Smart SMG, where bullets will apparently fly themselves into the bodies of enemies without the need to aim. Together with the shotgun, SMG, and Kerenzikov, the next room looks like a blast to play through.
One of many different weapons players can acquire, Weapons are built of modules that allow for deep customization and progression. This way, you can be sure to find something that will suit your playstyle.
That's the toughest bastards guarding this route. Probably some reason for that. Motherfucker!
Jesus Christ! My legs!
As V enters the next section, the narrator reminds the audience that this is still a work in progress, especially in regards to what is about to be shown. Not exactly confident, are we? We have to assume this next part is almost entirely scripted for it to work as shown. After taking down an enemy with stealth, we see V breach their network in this elaborate menu system where they disable their cyberware of the upcoming squad. Way more on this later.
Connects to. Through this Maelstrom gang member, we've now connected to the gang hideout's internal network. This is the building's personnel system. Let's focus on the squad containing the Maelstrom ganger we just connected to. From here, we can deploy software that affects the whole squad. For now, we'll simply unlock...
Then, the star of the show. V unsheaths her mantis blades and runs along an adjacent wall before hanging from it.
With Quick Hack, using the backdoor we unlocked a minute ago, we'll install a virus that jams the connection between the Maelstrom ganger and his weapon. This will prevent him from firing. Looks like he's having a problem now. Nice.
Wow, what a sequence. In 2018, this was truly a jaw-dropping moment. But let's collect ourselves as we head into the final part of the showcase. A few more offhand promises the narrator makes is the ability to double jump and bounce off walls. Okay, finally, V enters a room where they find a corporate tech rifle, which is valuable because corporate weapons are top of the line. Stepping into the final room triggers a boss fight with Royce, the Maelstrom leader. Everything shown in the showcase thus far is used here. Destructible cover, Korenzikov, dashing, and double jumping, and all the weapons V has acquired throughout the showcase thus far. After finishing Royce, the narrator remarks how differently this mission could have gone. If V hadn't met with Militech, or if V had warned Royce about the virus on the chip. If they just went in guns blazing to start, or to simply buy the bot with V's hard-earned scratch. So many options, so many possibilities. And each will have consequences that will ripple through the game world and your story. And that's just one quest. Leaving the All Foods, the mission wraps up with Militech pulling up to greet V and Jackie, and then calling Dex to tell him the good news.
Finish the job.
This concludes the 2018 showcase. Honestly, in 2018, this was a treat. Nearly an hour of what looked like something truly next generation, featuring a rich new world, tons of interesting features, and a branching narrative that allowed for emergent player control. It was a massive hour-long promise. A promise that we know all too well was never fulfilled. But the one thing about this showcase is that, well, it's fake. Almost everything we saw was scripted. There were a few tells that alluded to this, maybe more than a few. The lighting, materials, and general level of detail we saw is actually impossible to run smoothly on the hardware of 2018 in real time. This was shown in 4K. When the game came out in 2020, you could have an RTX 3090 in your system, future tech at this time, and the game only runs at around 30 FPS on 4K max settings, which means that the showcase was likely pre-rendered. What if V had a different gun equipped when they took out the scav in the ice bath? They never were going to have a different gun. The weird stats on Victor? Makes sense now. There's no system here. Because the entire showcase is essentially one long cutscene. A cutscene that actually cost them months of development time. But it looks like a game, and was presented as a game, which means we can compare it as if it was a game. At the very beginning of the 2018 gameplay reveal, there's one particular menu screen that details V's backstory. In this version of the game, the player would be able to choose a dynamic background based on 9 key factors. Most telling is the inclusion of Johnny Silverhand as V's potential childhood hero. Interesting, considering how Johnny is the main focal point of the launch game. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Here is a complete list of all the features they felt worthy enough to showcase on that fateful day. No loading screens, a dynamic class system, dynamic environment destruction, cutscenes. It's a long list, and the clever of you are probably thinking over in your head which ones you know are in the game today and which were left out. Outside of the showcase, there were a myriad of interviews and emails revealing more information about the promised game. There's going to be a wanted system and corrupt police. Night City will have acid rain. There'll be a challenging weather system that will pose a threat to your survival. There are going to be deep relationships with other characters. Say the wrong thing and they might hate you forever. These are just a few of the main claims CD Projekt Red made about the final product. Speaking of the final product, it's about time we dissect it against our control. Let's dive right into the launch game. Ready? Okay, let's go, chums. This is version 1.03 of Cyberpunk 2077. It's December 9th, 2020, launch day. 7 years after the initial teaser trailer, the game is finally here. Let's start a new game. So, remember that dynamic background for V? It's been replaced by a preset life path. One set backstory for V that provides context for their life before the events of the story. Fortunately, body customization is just as expected, if not more. Tattoos, unique eye colors, and interesting pieces of cosmetic cyberware are all available for players to peruse and choose to their heart's content. You can also, of course, change your junk if you want. This is a world where you can replace your entire body with cybernetics if you want to. A woman with a man's voice is just an average person to the denizens of Night City.
I'm V.
I'm V.
Of course, that also raises the question, isn't this kind of limited? If I did want to have an entire cybernetic limb or two, why isn't that an option here? Those Maelstrom punks we saw have some of the most insane body mods that's already in the game, but that kind of eccentric variety isn't available to us. We just have to begin as someone somewhat normal. For the sake of consistency, we'll go with the standard female V preset as shown in the marketing. We'll also try to match the showcase V with our attributes. In this case, a high mobility solo focused on reflexes, and a general distribution otherwise. I'm going to take a creative liberty here and choose the Corpo life path for this comparison. There are no wrong choices, but I feel that the Corpo path is what they would have chosen if they were to demo the opening of the game. I won't bore you with this section of the game. On every playthrough it's the same thing. But it serves as a good frame for the player to ground themselves in their character before the story really starts. In Corpo, your V works for Arasaka, and is terminated when the company finds out you conspired to assassinate a director. But no matter what life path you pick, V will inevitably become a mercenary in Night City, which is how it leads us to Sandra Dorset. No smoke and mirrors, this is the real game. For reference, this is running on an RTX 3090 at 1440p on the high preset if you'd like to take note of the visual differences between the showcase and the real game. Here we start in the parkade rather than the elevator, and walk with Jackie to the elevator. Once in, T-Bug calls us on the phone. Her previously animated background has been replaced by a generic background. Unfortunate. Once we're on the top floor, the machine pistol from the showcase is replaced by a semi-auto handgun, the Unity.
Looking for 1237. Target should be inside, but I got 0 eyes on her biomod. Fingers crossed it's not too late.
Is that you?
Ugh, I hate this life or death shit. Hurry. Try hacking the door. Think you can trip it on your own, V?
Instead of just opening the door, the game introduces you to quick hacks by hacking the door open. Cool. This section of the game is actually rather close to the showcase, with some key differences. First, there's a whole bunch of loot around now, like a lot of things to pick up. Most of it is junk. Things that aren't useful but you can sell. Also some different things to interact with, like this computer.
V, check this chica.
Xander Dorsett's protected under Echelon 2 Corpo immunity. Our girl's top shelf. This one's packing black market Zeta Tech repros. Typical back alley fix-ups. Not our lucky gal. Let's keep looking.
Mira, eyes off. Pendejos ahead. Quiet, V.
Remember that totally custom animation of drowning the scav in the ice bath? That's been replaced by a universal, generic knockout and hide that it can be used anywhere. Smart choice.
I couldn't have done that better myself.
V doesn't start off with Kerenzikov here, so there's no way to compare that here. It's just blasting. The combat is actually pretty impressive considering this is the studio's first foray into first-person combat. The RPG architecture of Cyberpunk makes enemies bullet sponges, even on normal at the very first combat encounter.
Clean it up, clean it out. Don't want to be bringing the target out under fire, and definitely don't want to slug into that.
No way. Not needed.
But there's actually destructible cover here in the launch game, so that's a promise kept.
Room he's in looks out on the balcony. Got a window on the left. Give me 2 steps.
Anyway, the boss is rammed through by Jackie, and then the scene with the ice bath is the exact same. The outside has more detail now compared to the showcase, seeing how the city has been finished.
Let's get out of here. Elevator gets us to the garage direct.
Good work. Shit show's over.
With the job done, V and Jackie leave via the elevator, which continues the job and segues into the next section,
Listen, chica,
which is
I got
not
this
V's
thing.
apartment a few days from
Mind
now.
if I borrow your wheels?
Huh.
I got a date with Misty, but I can't take the metro. How's it gonna look for me?
Won't leave you hanging, Jack. But don't get used to it.
You're saving my ass, V. Thank you. How about I drive you home, huh?
She's all yours. I'm beat as it is.
Oh, almost forgot. Should get Wakako in the hollow. Tell her the job's done.
We're quite far into this video already, so it's worth mentioning here that it's possible the showcase didn't really have a set story or structure in mind while they were creating it. The showcase is quite linear. V and Jackie hop from job to job with cutscenes bridging the gap. There is a promise of an open world in interviews and other literature, but we don't see that in the footage. Of course, as a demonstrator, you don't want to waste the audience's time just messing around. Everything is quite orchestrated, as we've discovered. So it's interesting here that this is the first time we actually see Night City in person ourselves. There truly aren't any loading screens in the game, something I'm sure took a lot of work to get working, especially on hard drive. This was arguably the most important promise, one that they kept. So good on you, CD Projekt. Anyway, the scavs ambush V and Jackie on the way home, which is cool to see that the car chase made it into the launch. And in a better place too. Right after the rescue makes much more sense than 3 days later. Let's skip ahead to getting home and going to sleep. In the morning, V finally has free control and is free to do whatever they want. There is no window control as seen in the showcase, just a button. We'll see that a lot actually. There are a few diegetic menu controls in the game, barred from elevators and keypads mostly. No weapon in the stash, unfortunately, but there are some clothes in the wardrobe. The armor system in launch works somewhat like the showcase. Each piece of clothing bears an armor value. Shirts, pants, shoes, jackets, even hats and sunglasses. Seemed good back then, but now that we get our hands on it, there's a big glaring problem. Clothes are armor. Obviously. But more importantly, there is nothing that dictates what clothes have the best armor. No sets or unique pieces of clothing, just arbitrary stats and levels. Which means if you want to be the best defended, get comfortable being a fashion pariah. Gross. I hate how I have to wear this crap if I want to have a 30 armor rating. It should also be mentioned here that while V can look any way you want to customize them in the beginning, there is no way to change that during the story. You are stuck with what you look like, in more ways than one. I don't like having a hat on V, but if I want to have more effective health, I don't have much of a choice. Anyway, stepping out of V's apartment, we can see the megastructure and its residents. That targeted Nikola ad machine is gone, to nobody's surprise. Useless gameplay feature. Instead, an NPC greets us and invites us to a side quest. Cool.
What do you say? How you like my new punching bag? Just gave me a next-gen ass whooping, he did.
Wilson also greets V as well, but now he's in his shop. The NPC dialogue is fleshed out, and the little conversations are nice little snippets that expand the world. Outside, instead of crossing the street to meet Jackie, we meet him eating noodles while he tells us about the job he got from Dexter Deshawn.
Good shit. But it just so happens, I think I might have bagged us a sweet-ass J.O.B.
Better for flow, characterization, and immersion. Great little scene here. He also got our car fixed, so we can just call it and get going. Instead of meeting Dex directly though, we're heading to Victor the Ripper first. Here, there are some small changes, but the scene mostly remains the same aside from the fact that the diegetic menu from the showcase has been replaced by a full menu of the different cyberware you can install. Of course, this menu is very basic, and you only see a little thumbnail of what you're installing to accommodate the dynamic body visual. Still, it's a step up from the showcase. 2 puffs now, and 2 again in an hour. Then we're out and back to meet Jackie, or rather to get directions to meet Dex. He's in a different spot now, but the Dexter interaction is the same all around, except that the job is different. Instead of just getting a bot from Maelstrom, that is now a small part of a larger job that has a few more moving parts. Also, instead of just buying the bot outright because he needs it, Dex now has already paid for the bot before leadership changed hands, giving V the opportunity to dynamically choose how they want to claim the bot for Dex and deal with the gang. The Militech agent is a factor here too, optional. After this sequence, V has the choice of either meeting with the client of the gig, Evelyn Parker, or going and retrieving the bot from Maelstrom. Here, we're going straight for Maelstrom. But know that there is no wrong answer here. Now we can call the Militech agent Meredith Stout. During the conversation, we can use our corporal life path to enable some enriched dialogue. For the purpose of the playthrough, we'll try to use the life path choices as much as possible, since they're there specifically to enable V, and because it simply makes the game more interesting.
Spill what you know. Don't make me wait.
Transport fuck-up's toxic for you, I know. So listen carefully. You and me are gonna meet. See if we can't find a way to help each other out.
Mutual self-interest. Agreed.
Since Jackie is off doing his own thing, the meetup won't involve him, so V is going in solo. The location is the same, but how things go down is a little different.
All set.
Now answer my questions. Honestly, forthrightly. Are you here alone?
Since Jackie isn't here, there's no point in lying if you're alone or not. Whoops.
I'll tell you who's alone. You. Fail to recover that transport, and you're done. With not a soul willing to help.
Not another word. Do a sweep, now.
Being a former corp makes this interaction more interesting though, since V sees through all of Stout's conversational tactics. Feels more like an episode of Mad Men rather than Breaking Bad.
Got no ties to Militech. None.
Checks out.
So how the fuck do you know so much?
Come on, all corps use the same playbook. I know the game inside out.
The option to grab the Hustle's gun has also mysteriously disappeared, meaning there's no way to initiate combat here. The agent gives you the money, now 10,000 eddies down from 50, but Corpo V knows there's a virus on it. Still, there's the option to take the deal or not, two branching paths. Now, since V knows there's a virus on it, the game also gives the player the option to remove it, making the deal a clean transaction. Of course, we'll do it. Nothing left to do but meet Jackie at the All Foods and get the quest underway. Before we do that though, I just want to go over the skill tree since at this point V has received a couple level ups. In tabletop RPGs, players are typically restricted to a class which dictates their skills and weapons, and then level up predictably. In D&D, you choose to be a fighter, a rogue, a wizard, things like that. Wizards cast spells but have limited use of weapons. Fighters can use basically any weapon but can't cast spells. You get the idea. Cyberpunk 2020 also has a variety of roles. You can play as a netrunner, a solo, a techie. These specific three are the classes they chose to adapt to the game. When they promised a fluid class system, what they were referring to was something already intuitive to you. A skill tree. Launch Cyberpunk's skill tree is divided into 5 foundational skills: reflexes, technical ability, body, intelligence, and cool, derived from the 3 classes. From there, each has 3 subsections that contain individual skills within it. So for example, within reflexes, which is focused on your movement speed and evasion, we have handguns, blades, and assault. Within these subtrees, we have the actual skills. Things like Bullet Jock, a passive that increases damage with rifles and submachine guns by 3%. Desperado, a passive that increases damage with pistols and revolvers by 3%. And Flight of the Sparrow, a passive that reduces the stamina cost of all attacks with blades by 30%. I don't have to tell you that this tree is capital G gaunt. 3%? Seriously? Every level up can only be applied to one specific area of combat. So if I like handguns, for example, I'll basically be restricted to only handguns throughout my playthrough, since that's what I put my points into. It's bad. A lot of these skills are just boring on top. It's worth mentioning that each subtree has its own leveling system too, earned from V's use of specific weapons. Here, V's reflexes is level 8, but her handgun skill is level 2, since she's only used the Unity in combat so far. Each of these levels grants a bonus reward, like increasing crit chance by 5% with the associated weapon. This system is divisive to say the least. On one hand, if you love blades and only want to use swords throughout your whole playthrough, then you can eventually make a very fun and outright busted build. But on the other hand, folks who like a bit of variety will constantly be at square one. It wants you to use one thing and stick with it. Perhaps that's the class part of Fluid. You can invest in whatever you want, but you really shouldn't. Anyway, V puts points into increasing her damage with pistols by a whole 6%, and we start the heist. We're gonna crack the data shard and remove the virus, because it's interesting, and enter All Foods.
Don't know you.
Wanna talk to Royce? Dex sent us.
Main room. We've been waiting.
The walk through the factory is the same as the showcase, with the flavor of the Dorset mission, loot and interactables around. Let's skip ahead to the deal.
Alright, chill, V. Remember, we're on their turf.
So what do you want?
Here to see Royce. We got biz to transact.
Mr. Royce is busy just now.
you'll deal with me.
Dialogue is a bit different, and Jackie still refuses to stand, but now with a timed response that allows you to skip the negotiation altogether and just start blasting.
On the fucking couch!
Make me.
Thought you'd never ask. Sit your ass down for a planet bullet in your skull.
Jack, sit down.
This ain't gonna end well. You'll be. Remember, we're on their turn.
Well...
But we're civilized mercs, so we'll ask Jackie to sit down. Take a hit from the inhaler, show off the bot.
Could lose your lunch.
Was moved to V from Dum Dum for some reason.
Yep, we'll take it.
Free. Sure. Yeah. Let's see your cred.
Brick got it. It's all paid out.
Brick got it. Huh. I don't see any fucking brick around here, do you?
Come on. Can't expect me to pay for this thing twice.
And who the fuck are you to say what can and can't be? You'll pay twice because I say you'll pay twice. Alright. You want the flathead? I better see some eddies.
Remember, in this version of the quest, Dex already paid for the bot. So the insistence that Brick already got his scratch is what triggers Royce getting up in your face about the money. But there are many ways this can go down. Pay with your own money, provided you have enough. Just cap the guy, or pay with the corporal funds. Many choices here, but let's play it straight and try to give Royce the D-Spike Militech cred.
Look at this fucking Girl Scout. You know all your nods? Got all your badges? You know, you never did say who sent you. Never did say who you're working for.
Dexter Deshawn. That's who.
Dexter Deshawn. The lord ass who punching animal fucked half of Pacifica? And he ain't dead?
No, he's alive, well, and kicking. And he sends his regards.
So, gonna consider my offer now? Here's the cred. Hell, I'll even toss in some info as a friendly bonus. Militech's on to you. They're close.
Wait, what?
Cred chip was spiked with a virus. But don't worry, I wiped it.
I actually love this path because after his netrunner confirms the money is clean, Royce just stands there and doesn't know how to process this. Of course, he has no option but to give V and Jackie the bot, so we got the bot without conflict. Nova.
Yeah, it's clean.
That rusty cunt. Now I gotta deal with this shit. You just take the damn bot and get the fuck out of my factory. If this is a trick, I'm gonna introduce you to our meat grinder.
Come on, take it.
Got what we came for.
Nova, so now leave. And hey, after you get Dex's dick out of your mouth, tell him I say hello.
Piece of shit.
Just kidding. It's not that easy. We screwed Militech, so they launched a raid on the factory. Instead of shooting our way out of the factory at Maelstrom like in the showcase, now we're shooting our way out of the factory with Maelstrom. The path is different, so we won't see everything from the showcase, but we did pick up a new SMG, as well as find Brick, who is actually not dead and is just being held hostage in a room. Find the code and bust him out if you'd like, as an optional objective.
Careful. I'm moving an inch away from this laser. I'm ground beef. It's linked to a mine.
Unfortunately though, our technical skill isn't high enough so we can't disarm the mine. Still, Very interesting for CD Projekt to add that in. V and Jackie continue shooting through the factory against Militech, until we reach the special room with the Corpo tech rifle.
You done shitting your pants yet?
No tech rifle in there. Oh well. The final room still contains a mini-boss, but the combat encounter with Royce has been replaced by 2 Militech ED-209 style bots. This part of the game is actually kind of difficult because there's a severe lack of ammo for the guns we picked up, and the starting pistol doesn't do a whole lot of damage. Plus, both grenades and healing items are consumable, so if you don't come in with enough, you can softlock yourself quite easily. But this is still a starter mission the game wants you to win, so even if you're underpowered, your new Maelstrom friends are not.
Get out of here.
No. Wanted to let you know I like your style.
Well, got anything to say?
What?
Thanks, V.
For fucking what?
For saving your sorry tin can ass.
Are you fucking high?
After a non-thanks from Royce, V and Jackie step outside and greet not Mary the Stout, but Anthony Gilchrist. By removing the virus from the chip, Stout got antsy and ordered Militech to storm the factory prematurely, losing a lot of people in the process. So our boy Gilchrist here stepped in her place, while she is presumably losing her job.
I'd be dead by now. Might not have intended it, but you saved my life. Now I'm saving yours. Makes us even.
With that, V and Jackie are free to leave, bot in hand. A quick call to Dex to give him the lowdown, and both the quest and this portion of the game is complete.
And how'd it go? Run into any trouble? And what about the Militech angle?
Sure, of course there was trouble. Royce couldn't have given two shits that you and Brick had shaken on
How'd you get him on board? You used the Corpo woman?
it. Met with Stout, managed to strike a deal.
Well, well.
Gave me the chip with the scratch for Maelstrom. I warned Royce. We made a deal.
You got some balls, Miss V.
You've just sat through what is basically the same section of the game twice, so I want to congratulate you for sticking with me for so long while we go through this. It's a lot, I know. So between 2018 and 2020, several key aspects of the game were rearranged, ripped, trashed, and fleshed out. Remember, the showcase was all smoke and mirrors, so it's not a stretch to say that these two visions of the project are more different than they are alike. The 2018 showcase wanted audiences to think of the game as a deep narrative RPG, with cutscenes, dialogue choices, and an emergent branching narrative. Consequences that will ripple through the game world. Its fluid class system would allow players to pursue combat the way they wanted to, and their skills allow them to pass checks and interact with the environment. Essentially, it would be a video game version of the Cyberpunk 2020 board game, which is largely a Cyberpunk version of Dungeons & Dragons. This is possible, and I would be willing to bet this version of the game is not too far off from 2023's Baldur's Gate 3, which proved without a doubt that a video game version of a tabletop game can not only be done, but also be done well. But one critical thing separates tabletop from video, and that's combat. 2077 was always going to be an action game. First-person gameplay means good players could reduce what a 30-minute encounter would be in tabletop to just 5 minutes in action. Nearly every other tabletop-turned video game has a more tactical approach, requiring players to think about their moves, meaning the pacing is nearly the same. Examples include titles like Total War Warhammer or BattleTech, both tabletop-turned tactical strategy. For a more direct comparison, we can look at the Shadowrun series. It's also based in the Cyberpunk setting, but most of the entries are top-down tactical games, with a couple exceptions including a linear FPS entry. But the game that's most like what they were going for? Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, based on the Vampire the Masquerade tabletop game. This game is a first and third person RPG, where you play as a vampire in LA. Players step into a world of different factions and clans already with their own agendas and power in a city run by the vampire elders. You talk to NPCs.
Great! And I saw your teeth and I was like, damn, it was like I could just sense you. The name's Knox Harrington. Pleasure to meet you. Oh, man.
Do quests, choose how to build your vampire, customize their appearance, decide what powers they have, and all of it contributes to the way you progress through the open, branching path narrative. There is even an official crossover in 1993 called The World of Future Darkness that was the combination of White Wolf's Vampire the Masquerade 2nd Edition and Mike Pondsmith's Cyberpunk 2020. This is a real tabletop game. Furthermore, both Pavel Sasko, the lead quest designer, and Mateusz Tomaszkiewicz, one of the members of the quest design team, stated in interviews that a big influence on the game was Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines.
The greatest video game of all time, I don't know, for me, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines.
2077 wanted to be a spiritual successor to Bloodlines. It's clear. So, the launch version of the game should be something like that, right? Both yes and no. Because while I'm just going to call it Bloodlines. Because while Bloodlines is remembered as a cult classic, an RPG masterpiece, it launched as a buggy, unfinished mess. The only reason that Bloodlines is playable today is because it was saved by a community of fans who spent years fixing the game with community patches, mods. How both these titles shared a disastrous launch is nothing short of an act of divine comedy. So, what happened to Cyberpunk 2077 between 2018 and 2020 if their main influence ended up being nothing like the launch game? Honestly, it might be due to the high-profile nature of the project. Sure, Bloodlines is a cult classic, but have you ever played it? Do you ever see people talking about it like they talk about other games from 2004 like Fable or Knights of the Old Republic? Even with elite ball knowledge, you might still consider Bloodlines to be a niche game. And it is. That's why it's a cult classic, not a classic. Cyberpunk 2077 needs to be a classic in the future. And honestly, all that choice in something made like Bloodlines is overwhelming, even for veterans. Who should I side with? How should I build my character? If I do this, will these people hate me? If I do that, will this lock forever? Personally, it's the reason why I never finished New Vegas. I pay attention, I like deep choices, but even I got lost in the sauce of indecision. Consider now that the average gamer wants something relatively easy to pick up and put down. So an ambitious, branching narrative, in-depth RPG project like that would simply be more difficult to market than a more streamlined action RPG. So, take the 2018 version, strip away a lot of the more complex systems, and adapt the ideas to be simpler. That's basically the 2020 version of Cyberpunk in a nutshell. No Mantis Blades parkour, no cutscenes, no diegetic menus, no dynamic life path, no emergent crime scenes, clothes that have armor values, a bad weapon-based class and leveling system, and many, many, many more broken, rushed, and overall underbaked systems. But that's not what we have today. Many years have passed since that fateful night on December 9th, 2020, and it would be unfair to compare the two without including the Cyberpunk of 2026. Hundreds, if not thousands, of small changes have converted 2077 to what I would consider to be nearly a different game entirely. This is version 2.31 of Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I won't subject you to the same opening a third time over because honestly, there is not too much that has changed over the updates in regards to the story. But the gameplay has been completely rebalanced from the ground up. So let's fast forward through this, shall we? There is far less loot now because all that junk has been consolidated into weapons, crafting materials, and, well, junk. Enemies are far less bullet spongy, and they now drop their weapons all the time, except most of the time they're broken and are disassembled into crafting materials. The drive with Jackie is the same, getting home is a little different. Now the game starts V off with a few different weapons to choose instead of just the default unity. One of the biggest changes though is that the clothes now are just clothes. V can wear whatever they want without worrying about their stats. Let's fast forward to Victor. Surprisingly, the poster on the wall has been changed for some reason, but more importantly, the cyberware menu is different. Now you get eyes, hands, and armor, which is where the armor went. 2 puffs now and 2 more in an hour. V still doesn't take another puff in an hour. Meet with Dex, talk to Stout, crack the shard. Skill tree, yes, the big skill tree. The whole skill tree has been totally, utterly gutted and reworked. Now you gain perks instead of skills, which all individually do something, even minor. Nearly every perk is useful in some way, and they unlock progressively as you invest more points into their respective tree. Personally, I love following the knife section of the cool tree. It feels really nice to throw a knife into some gonk's skull and instantly get it back with Juggler. It's easy to follow, each level feels impactful, and it still allows for exciting build variety. This skill tree rocks. In a word, preem. But while I'm describing this to you, you might have had the question, honestly, that's all fine and dandy, but who cares? What about the gameplay? What about the cyberware? Where are my wall-running mantis blades? Where are the branching narrative paths and the fluid RPG mechanics? Let me ask you this. Are you satisfied with Cyberpunk 2077? Is this the best they have? 6 years later, one expansion, one rework, and what has changed? What is different? What is different? The truth of the matter is that the Cyberpunk we saw in 2018 is long gone. I'm not going to tell you that they fixed all the issues with the game and that the patches and reworks made all the little gamers' dreams come true, because that's not the reality. As soon as Keanu Reeves was cast as Johnny Silverhand, one of V's possible childhood heroes, the studio had the obligation to place him as the focal point of the game. While neither confirmed nor denied by CD Projekt, it stands to reason that this transformed it from a pseudo-immersive sim to an action RPG. From there on, they had fewer than 2 years to craft the rest of the experience around Johnny. Don't get me wrong, I like Johnny. I think he's a great character. But it's not what the original vision of the game was, and the actual game part was kind of thrown together. That was clear from the awful skill tree, the downright broken Xbox One and PS4 ports which should have never shipped, and the total lack of player agency in the story. There are so few opportunities to actually use your character's life path to solve problems, but even then, it almost never changes the way you can complete quests. But at the same time, it's also true that the soul of Cyberpunk is the same. Always has been. The most important parts of Night City have always been there. The stories, the quests, the world. When you meet Joshua and you follow him through Sinnerman. When you say a prayer and nail him to a cross to be sacrificed. When Elizabeth and Jeff Perales hire you to investigate their home after a bump of the night and discover a hidden surveillance room and a mind-controlling conspiracy. When you meet the monk who was disfigured and had cybernetics installed against his will, but asks you don't harm the people who did it as that would go against their beliefs. All of these stories were in the game from day one. If the game's vision from the 2018 showcase came to fruition, wouldn't these quests be just as good? Aren't these what is worth playing Cyberpunk for? Isn't the point of a role-playing game to make stories from the role you're playing? Or is it right to mourn content that might have been better? If these stories were what was left after the more complex systems were dropped, could you imagine what they had lined up with a more in-depth dialogue and skill system? It's tough to say, and even I am torn. The gameplay is very important, obviously. When 2077 was released, these stories were borderline inaccessible. Technical difficulties aside, the actual game part of it was a slog. It's like a cyber porcupine. You had to get past the chrome thistles to reach the nice underbelly. At the same time though, some people liked the thorns once the game was patched. Lots of folks enjoy and relish games that provide these 3% stat increases, and often these systems allow for superhero-like builds. So the question again is, what is best? The spiritual successor 2018 showcase, the free-form launch version with the small incremental skill tree and hybrid RPG/action game, or the action RPG modern version with the consolidated loot and the revised skill tree? What version of the game gives us its best lasting qualities? Well, the answer, truthfully, may lie in Phantom Liberty, the first and only expansion for Cyberpunk 2077. It's a microcosm of every lens of the game, a brand new area of Night City with its own self-contained campaign, fixer, side missions, and gigs. V becomes wrapped in a conspiracy to kill the president of the new United States, overthrow the leadership of Dogtown, and rescue a key asset for the country. Choose between working with Reed, the cold, all-business spy veteran that follows orders to the T, or the elite netrunner Songbird, one of the NUS's prime cyber assets. One of the only people in the world able to reach beyond the Black Wall and hack anyone and anything. Marketed as a spy thriller, the expansion is equally ambitious as it is intriguing. But does it really live up to that? Given another shot at this, does Dogtown fulfill everyone's hopes and dreams for a true RPG cyberpunk? Well, the story takes place across 14 missions, 10 core, and 4 past 2 branching paths. In total, about 18, but you'll only ever see 14 of them through one playthrough. This story is completely linear until you reach a mission with a big choice, where you'll choose to side with one of 2 characters. Then the finale will reflect that choice. The funny thing about this structure is that it reflects the quest structure for the entire expansion. Seriously, nearly every gig and side mission in Phantom Liberty works like this. You receive the mission from a client, then you go and do the activity. Break into their rival safe house, collect a piece of data or item, or just straight up flatline someone. Then, once you stealth or shoot your way through living obstacles, you reach your target where they offer you some type of deal. You could do what the quest giver wanted, or you could make this alternate choice. Spare the target's life, take a bribe for the would-be stolen object, strike a deal to let it go. Every single quest, every one. In the story, you can do what the NUSA wants you to do, or you could take the deal. Now, I will give CD Projekt a hand here. Some of the choices are pretty good. In No Easy Way Out, some gonk named Aaron wants out of a boxing deal he has with the animals. Doesn't want to throw a big fight coming up and make his own career as a boxer, but he has this chip in his skull that can force him to throw it. So, the job is to infiltrate a scav hideout and get it removed from the Ripper who chipped him. Of course, as soon as the surgery is done, the scavs show up with new information. Turns out they never once used the chip, and the guy just threw the fights on his own. You can either strike a deal with them and convince him to throw the fight anyway, or tell them to get lost so the son can fight on his own terms. In another one called Prototype in the Scraper, an experimental cyberware and its schematics are captured by scavs and your job is to collect. Thing is, the prototype is actually installed into one of the engineers who was responsible for the transport of it and was attacked by the scavs. The client, Zetatech, doesn't need the engineer, just the tech, but sending him back to the company to remove the ware would doom him. So again, a choice. Do what the client says and send the engineer back, or help him escape from the company. These examples shown are among the most interesting choices. Not all of them are winners, but while all of these choices reflect the main story of Phantom Liberty, none of them ever contribute to the world. Once the quest is done, the only thing left to do is to contemplate on the choice you made as the player. It's all the same parable. Follow your orders or help the cornered. A or B, then end scene. It's roleplay to an extent, and certainly an upgrade over the largely linear missions of the core game, but it's still only a binary. The thing about Cyberpunk 2077 as a game is that certain elements of it are immutable. Rip out the gameplay, add an expansion, new weapons, new cyberware, whatever. That's fine. You can do that all day, CD Projekt Red. What you can't do is alter the foundation of the experience. As soon as the core RPG of the game became 5 simple skills, it killed the opportunity for V to have deep conversation. Skill checks are always based on just the level of one attribute. These checks are arguably one of the best parts of the game. Whenever that little symbol shows up in dialogue, I get excited. Obviously, I go with the option that's only available because of my choices. That's fun. But these moments are regrettably few and far between. As soon as Johnny was put into the game, it became his story. Your V, but Johnny's game. There is no branching narrative, no allegiances, no real consequences to your actions. Phantom Liberty has 10 core story missions with a big choice that leads to an encore for each branching path. Nothing else you choose to do really matters. There are 9 gigs that lead to 5 follow-up missions. These are just closure quests. You chose to do this, now the client or target is giving you a small reward for it. 6 one-off side missions, 3 base raids, 4 taros to find, and 9 vehicle captures, which is to find a car somewhere and bring it to another location. This was their big expansion? A few new little missions and characters? A new little story? Yes, the soul is still here. The stories are good, they're competently made. That remains intact with Phantom Liberty. But the crucial ingredient that the game was truly missing was never added. Consequence. Do something now, something else happens later. The one foundational promise from the 2018 showcase. Yes, I know sometimes characters remember the dialogue choices you make, but largely there is no meaningful consequence in the Cyberpunk 2077 we know and love. The city never changes. The people never change. Steal the relic from Arasaka. They don't even really care. You never see them try to find you throughout the game. Slaughter a few NCPD during a mission? Nah, no big deal. Flatline an entire base of voodoo boys and kill the star netrunner? Doesn't bother them. Nobody loves you or hates you in Night City. There's no, Jesus Christ, that's V, run! Or, hi V, can I get a picture? Or even, there's V, killer. By the end of the game, you're nearly a celebrity in terms of street cred, but these gonks will still take a job to try to kill you and even ask, who's V? It feels meaningless. Nothing really changes in Dogtown after the events of the campaign. It's still a hellhole. Same dilapidated streets, same poverty, same high-tech, low life. The city always wins, that's the point. But isn't there any room for it to change too? Let's finally put this together. What is the best version of Cyberpunk 2077? 2018 showcase, launch, or 2.0 with the Phantom Liberty? I think it's fair to say that the answer isn't so black and white. The showcase had big plans. It was going to be this expanding narrative action RPG with competent gameplay, but we never had any idea of what the story was going to be, and we now know that it was all faked. The launch was a technical disaster. While the story and side missions were well made and satisfying, its gameplay system straight up didn't work. Yet, some found fun in the mess, and some of the builds from back then trump what came afterwards in terms of role-playing. The rework boasts a riveting expansion to complement its brand new expanded gameplay systems. The gameplay is tight and fluid, and the missions are charming, but Phantom Liberty still lacks that true RPG feeling that was promised by the showcase and existed within the launch. This leaves us with one conclusion. Was the Cyberpunk we got better than the Cyberpunk we were promised? Yes, but with one catch. Yes, because the value on offer here with Phantom Liberty extends far beyond the promise of 2018. Looking back, it's a little hard to believe we were ever excited for this version of the game. The gameplay, systems, and stories of the rework are so much better than what we were promised. In the end, this game became a phoenix rising from the ashes. What started as an absolute disaster beat the odds and became better than anyone ever expected. At the same time though, it's impossible not to mourn what could have been. If the skills were just a little more varied and fleshed out, if the dialogue was just a little more emergent, if there really were going to be consequences for our choices. Skill checks and binary choices aren't enough for Cyberpunk to be a true role-playing game. This game needed something that nobody could change once it was out the door. That nobody could change once the structural integrity of the game was etched in stone. But that doesn't mean it's over necessarily. As of writing, Cyberpunk 2 is in production, which means they can take everything good they did with their first game and finally create the in-depth narrative RPG they wanted to. For real this time. take the gameplay from Phantom Liberty and craft the branching paths from the showcase together into one unified experience. The 2018 showcase promised a world where your body was your build. While the rework got us close, the ultimate realization of that 2018 dream would be to merge skills and cyberware together. Cyberware is the heart of Cyberpunk, but in 2077 it feels like it takes a back seat. Crazy idea, but what if every separate body part had its own skill tree that adapted to the kind of cyberware you have? You want to reflect bullets with blades? That skill will be unlocked with the nervous system pathway, where you can install Kerenzikov and Reflex Tuner. Want to tank loads of gunfire and wield 2 weapons at the same time? Available through the circulatory and integumentary systems as a result of Pain Editor and Adrenaline Booster. The smart folk at CD Projekt can tweak the numbers, but the idea is, how you build the protagonist would not only literally be how you build them, but would also base your character on their chrome, changing the way they meaningfully interact with missions and quests. Too ambitious? Maybe. Let me know what you think. But those are the types of consequences players are looking for. The kind that extends beyond the A-B choice of Phantom Liberty. It's good, but it could be better. I just hope the next time we see Night City, it'll be with the eyes we choose to have. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. This has been Game DNA. Stay smart, doubt what you know, and have fun.